Irene asks, do you start with the stitching before you make your cross stitch or after? Hi, my name is Elle. I'm a cross stitch artist and designer here on TikTok. And this question was left on a video that I was making about doing blanket stitching around the edges of bookmarks. So I want to say that you are going to start with doing your black work or your cross stitching before you do your blanket stitching. And the reason why is this is actually the very first bookmark that I ever made and prototyped. And so when I was doing the blanket stitching around this was me really testing it and seeing what was gonna work and if the blanket stitching would even hold the edges well and keep it from fraying. I made this 8 years ago and I used this as a bookmark for about 7 of those years. Up until about a year ago, I finally switched to a different bookmark, and this has held up remarkably well. One thing I didn't do on this prototype, however, was I did not put a back on it. However, that means that you get to see what the back of this piece looks like before you put a back on it. So I recommend putting a felt back or a fabric back of some kind on the back of your bookmark before you do your blanket stitching so that you blanket stitch it onto the back of your piece. However, this is what it's going to look like without the blanket stitching when you're finished with your piece. So if you had done the blanket stitching first and stitched the backing on, as you're stitching all of this detail, it would go through 2 layers and you would see all of the little knots or all of the little pieces of thread on the back of your piece. And the whole point of putting a back on it is that we want to cover that up and enclose all of that so that it's nice and protected, so that just in case any of these little bits snag on anything or get pulled or snipped or anything like that, it's nice and enclosed. So that's just not going to happen. That being said, like I said, this one has held up remarkably well considering I never did put a back on this piece, but I do know that if I had, it would hold up even better and even longer. I can feel a difference in the quality of these pieces simply by having that little bit thicker, that back on there holding all of those little stitches in. I hope that helps. Feel free to leave any more questions in the comments if you have them, and I will make video responses trying to help you guys out. And as always, happy stitching.